call the meeting to order. It's Tuesday, January 21st. It is 5:30. Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Orth?
Here.
Trustee Whitaker?
Here.
Trustee Fowler?
Here.
Trustee Mendrick?
Here.
Trustee Gallen?
Here.
Trustee Denges?
Here.
Like all our public meetings, we allow public comment. Would anybody like to address the board? There will be another opportunity. You go like during a regular board meeting. Let's pass the program.
No, I'm ready. Yeah, I'm okay. Bring this down. My name is Alicia Ballar. I live on Hap Road. I'm just following up on the December 5th email that Patrick sent out that recapped the board's decision in that week's Committee of the Whole meeting. And there were 5 things that he stated. 1, to reevaluate the entire project area from Winnetka Road to Willow. Use the available investigatory engineering data to the extent possible. Explore the option of seeking ownership of the roadway from Cook County. Reconstitute a planning group. I'm sorry, I'm just reading this for your own reminder. Reconstitute a planning group for the Hap Road project and develop and implement a robust community engagement plan, with the first step being to notify our project partners, including Cook County and the Illinois Department of Transportation. Okay, so since that time, we've heard nothing, and the topic does not appear on today's agenda. So Patrick, we have heard you say in recent months that going forward, there would be more transparency and communication with residents. And right now, we are in that future time, and nothing really seems to have changed. We remain in the dark. So this is resulting in, from what we hear, the people who kind of have their ear to what the residents are saying and thinking, it's resulting in a continuation of the distrust that has been felt by residents for many months, maybe years. With that lack of trust comes an urgent need to form a committee or planning group, which is one of the things listed in your list of 5 next steps. So residents and business owners need to know there are people involved who represent them. So some Hap Road residents and business owners should be part of this group. Northfield has many residents who have relevant skills and experience and can bring value to that process. Engineers, attorneys, designers, architects, of course, representatives from other involved county and state entities need to participate, and at least 1 board member. So that's sort of a vision from my perspective of what this committee should be, for what it's worth. The objectives of this group would be to ensure that the upcoming re-envisioning process is informed with the residents' perspectives, ensure that a reasonable timeline is set and adhered to, and ensure that residents are regularly updated and surveyed as needed. The residents of this village want action. This is not a dead issue, and every day that nothing happens, feelings of distrust and disappointment are fueled. Members of the Save Hap Road Committee, people you've met coming to these meetings, are ready to collaborate with the village to help form this committee, and we think it's urgent that it happen soon.
Okay. Patrick had planned on commenting during our regular board meeting. Would you like to say something now, or would you feel comfortable? I know you're going to address it at the regular board meeting.
Sure, I'd be happy to give an update now
That's great.
because people may not stay for the regular board meeting. Since I sent that email out, I've had some outreach with Cook County, both them and our engineers, and have not heard anything back from Cook County yet. So that's part of the reason that we're not discussing this tonight, is I was hoping to get an update from Cook County so we had a better understanding of where we would be moving forward. The next step really is engaging the board in that discussion of how they want to have the oversight of this group happening. So my next step is to give the county a formal update via letter to say, here's our status, and ask them several questions about, can you give me some answers here? So I'm hoping we'll be able to do that at the February meeting. The February committee whole is also our budget planning session, so we'll find a way to split that discussion between those 2 objectives.
Thanks, Patrick. Alicia, a lot of what you said I agree with, by the way. It's and thank you for making those comments. So when we hear something back from county, we'll have a better opportunity to update the residents. Thanks. Anybody else? Hi, Ann.
Hi, Ann Peterson. coming at you from Go Green Northfield. I don't know if you recently read in the paper, but as of January 1st, Chicago municipal buildings are running on 100% renewable energy. They get 70% of that energy from a new solar farm that they just turned on, the biggest solar farm east of the Mississippi, that they invested in a few years ago to develop. But they get 30% of that renewable energy from RECs, renewable energy credits. And I know in the past, our group has spoken to you about purchasing RECs on behalf of Northfield. And at the time, you were not down. But I'm hoping that this recent development in Chicago may act as a catalyst to reconsider. And I'd love to send you some information on RECs through an email if you'd be willing to look at it. So going to take that as a yes. I'll just go ahead and send it.
Send it to Mel. I think you've taught,
Okay.
you correspond with Mel, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So, and the board will look at it again.
Okay, great. That'd be great.
Thanks, Ann.
I've also, just as a side, heard from 2 different trustees about, maybe thinking about getting rid of the single plastic use water bottles. What's that? Looks like a single, okay. So anyway, keeping it on your radar, would love to see that. I saw the cooler get wheeled in, and I was like, ugh. But maybe someday soon we could think about, just as kindergartners do every day at school, bring your own renewable water bottles. Thank you so
Thank you.
much. I appreciate it.
Anyone else? Hearing none, going on to approval of minutes. Can I have a motion and a second to approve the December 3rd, 2024 minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes from December 3rd.
Second.
Thank you very much. All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. Next on the agenda, discussion of the proposed updates for model codes. That'd be Steve Gutierrez.
Thank you, President Lugmus.
Thank you, Steve.
So staff is proposing to update the village's family of building, fire, and life safety codes. These codes, laymen commonly refer to as, and would maybe think about these as our building codes. Those codes that we apply to any kind of construction within the village of Northfield. Our codes, our building codes, if you will, really are adopted, are adopting by reference a series of model codes and standards published by the International Code Council, or ICC, the National Fire Protection Association, known as the NFPA, and the state of Illinois, which promulgates certain codes such as the State Plumbing Code. These organizations update their model codes incrementally. They do. You bet, you bet. No problem. So these organizations update and maintain these codes incrementally to reflect current methods of safe and efficient construction, advancements in building materials, the evolution of energy efficiency measures, and for example, the new NFPA, or again, the National Fire Protection Association, there is a new NFPA code that provides standards for large battery systems charged by alternative power sources like solar or wind energy, essentially large batteries in homes that are being installed more frequently now than they have in the past. Again, just an example of the types of evolution that these family of codes go through, or these model codes go through. The ICC and NFPA are commonly adopted model codes nationwide. I'd venture actually to say that they're pretty much universally adopted and used or referred to in suburban Chicago. Our code adopts these model codes by reference, as I mentioned before, but we reference the specific additions. Again, these codes evolve, these model codes evolve, and so what staff is recommending is that we adopt the most recent edition of the ICC codes and recent editions of the National Fire Protection Association codes and standards. We would adopt these by reference, but then we also suggest, and our current code has what we call local amendments. So these are tweaks to the model codes that tailor our enforcement to local conditions. Now, I'm going to go through the various codes and the additions that we're suggesting or recommending we adopt, and then some noteworthy local amendments to these new additions. And I'm going to go through that in a little bit more detail in a second. But I just wanted to explain that it's very commonly done. Almost every municipality is going to have their local amendments. The local amendments that we're suggesting are more stringent than the model codes. We're not relaxing the model codes. We're just making them more stringent for various reasons. So again, staff is recommending the adoption. It's a little bit hard to see, but I will read these out actually. These are the ICC or International Code Council codes. They include the International Building Code, the 2021 edition, the International Residential Code, 2021. Here we are suggesting two local amendments. One is to require heat detectors in residential garages as electric vehicle charging stations are becoming more prevalent. The other is to preempt the use of shipping containers as buildings or structures. The IRC, or the International Residential Code, does actually allow for that and offers standards for that, but we're, again, suggesting an amendment that would exclude that section of the IRC code to preempt that, the use of containers for structures and buildings. International Mechanical Code, 2021 edition, the International Fuel Gas Code, 2021 edition, the International Property Maintenance Code, 2021 edition, the International Existing Building Code, 2021, International Swimming Pool and Spa Code, 2021, and the International Fire Code, 2021. For the National Fire Protection Association codes, we're suggesting updating to the National Electric Code, 2020, the Life Safety Code, 2024, Automatic Sprinkler Systems, NFPA Publication 13, 2022, Sprinkler Systems in Low-Rise Residential Occupancies, NFA Publication 13R, 2022 edition, Sprinkler Systems in 1- and 2-family dwellings, NFPA Publication 13D, 2022 edition, Standpipe and Hose Systems, NFPA Publication 14, 2024 edition, National Fire Alarm and Signaling Code, NFPA 72, 2022 edition, the installation of stationary energy storage systems, which I mentioned just now as an example, 2023 edition. And then adopting the State of Illinois building-related codes, which include the Illinois Energy Conservation Code of 2021 or current edition, the Illinois State Plumbing Code 2014 or current edition. On this, we are suggesting a local amendment that would prohibit certain types of PVC with cellular core for various types of venting in a building. And then finally, the Illinois Accessibility Code 2018 or current edition. Most of these, the incremental changes from what we're suggesting, these new additions of these various codes, and the additions we have currently referenced is, again, pretty incremental, nothing really earth-shattering. There is one significant change that we are suggesting, and that is in the International Residential Code, the 2021 International Residential Code. That code, that model code requires automatic fire sprinklers in all new 1- and 2-story dwellings. The Fire and Rescue and Community Development Department are recommending the adoption of that requirement without amending it out in our local edition, a local amendment. As we provided a fact sheet that was developed essentially by the fire department and particularly by the Winnetka Fire Department, who provides our fire prevention services and inspectional plan review and inspectional services for us. I'll just highlight a couple of things that are noted there. Sprinklers are a proven means to mitigate loss of life, injury, and property damage. This requirement for 1- and 2-story single-family, new 1- and single-family homes has really become the standard in our area. In the material that we provided, and we'll throw a table up on the screen, see that this is a survey of pretty much all of the area. So we could zoom out a little bit on that. Of the northern, northwest suburban municipalities, and those in red are our immediate neighbors on the North Shore. And you can see in the middle column there, those that are requiring residential sprinklers for new single family are checked off. And again, it's really become the standard, not the exception. So again, as we mentioned, we contract our plan review and fire-related plan reviews and inspections with the Village of Winnetka. They are on that list of communities that have adopted this sprinkler requirement. And we think it's important for us to be consistent in our code enforcement with Winnetka as they're doing our fire-related code enforcement. We are not recommending requiring sprinklers retroactively for home additions or home remodeling, simply new single family. With that, Deputy Fire Chief Tom Burke and the Fire Chief are here to answer any questions, and I can answer any questions that you might have particularly related to the fire safety code amendments and the sprinkler requirement. And staff is seeking direction from the board to draft the appropriate ordinance and place it on the February regular board meeting agenda for final action.
Hey, Steve.
Yes.
I just wanted to note a couple of things. If you look at the list, the year adopted, you see 1988 for Long Grove. And Long Grove specifically did that, just a little history, because they have no fire hydrants. They run off of wells and things like that. If you look, the next town to adopt was in 2000, was Wheeling Fire Department. Proud to be a member of that fire department. Proud to say that I was a part of that process. I think there's a really big public education piece that needs to go along with this, because residents who want to build are going to have lots of questions, because it is an added cost. But I think creating a piece to convey to the residents that you have to do the cost-benefit analysis. And, I look at a whole house generator, we put one in. It saved incredible amounts for insurance because we've alleviated a potential issue with some pump backups, everything else. Fire sprinklers in the home, there's always pushback because it was an added cost. So I will say, and if you're looking, my direction is, I think that this is a huge issue that needs to be addressed, and I think it's a good issue as well. that needs to be addressed. So it's taken a while, and it's one of those things that you put in the back drawer, because I haven't even looked at this for 25 years, but it's great. I'm glad to see that we're doing it.
Thanks, Tom. Before I ask the other trustees for comments, Tom Burke or Mike Nystrand, do you have anything you would like to add to this, Steve Gutierrez's presentation there?
No, and thank you, Steve. I'll have to thank the Lumen Fire Department inspectors did a lot of work on this, a lot of legwork, which was great.
Hey, Tom, sorry to interrupt. Would you step up at the podium? The people at home want to be able to see your face and hear your voice.
Thank you, Tom.
Look at my back, though.
People at home.
So we have looked at this, and as Trustee Whitaker said, this is something that's been on our radar for years. There is one other little thing in the Illinois adopted a code that now we cannot be more than, it's either 2 cycles or 6 years behind in any code, any fire code. So no matter what, we do have to update our codes. We looked at the codes, and we're very happy with the codes that we are trying to propose. Sprinklers, yeah, they cost money. That's true. I can stand up here and say, it's all about life safety. We worry about children, we worry about, families and things like that, which we do. This is, in my opinion, a good code, good policy to have. And like Steve did mention, we're not asking for any houses that are being remodeled or anything like that. It would be all for new single-family, 1- and 2-story family houses. So,
Thank you, Tom. Sure. Who wants to start? Any trustees have any questions for Steve Gutierrez or Tom Burke?
I think this is a great step forward, again, being in this business for 44 years and having done this and worked on this in multiple communities in the region and being involved in this. This is very important. People don't realize, that sprinkler systems are designed to save lives, but they're also designed to keep the fire in check until the fire department can respond and then continue to extinguish the fire. Especially if you're not home, it saves pets, it saves a lot. The water damage compared to a loss of a fire is minimal compared to what you can lose. The other thing is that this is long overdue, and obviously this is a great step forward, and it's good to see that you guys are so proactive. The other thing people have to remember is that when you talk about the cost, it's an initial cost, but if you amortize that cost over 50 or 100 years of how old the home will be, it's really insignificant when you look at it. And it also reduces your insurance rates, and I don't think you can put a price on a life or safety. And I know Chief Nystrand and I were at fire many, many years ago, the Ball residence on Middle Fork, when Nina Ball died. She was actually in the bathroom taking a shower, had no idea there was a fire, opened the door and was succumbed because there was a fire in the home. So there's been people that we've known that we've lost, and I think sprinkler systems would have saved those lives. And I think this is an important step forward, and I'm glad to see that as a community we're moving forward, and I think it's the best for the community and for the safety of the residents.
Thank you, Charlie. Anybody else?
I just have a question for Steve. The amendments that you've identified, are those the only amendments that are going to be different than the model codes?
We already have a series of amendments which we'd maintain. These would be new amendments based
these
on
are the
the
only
new
new
codes. Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, these are only noteworthy ones. There's all kinds of, there's a ton, there's a number of amendments that, the ICC model or family of codes has its own electric code, plumbing code. We would supersede that with the Illinois plumbing code, things like that, or titles. But those are the only substantive amendments.
The other question I had for the three of you, is there any thought, I know some of the communities, if you do over a 50% of the properties remodeling, that you make them retro some of the other parts of the home with sprinkler systems. Is there any thought to looking at anything with that, especially the fact that if they do an over 50% remodel, it's a greater chance that there could be a problem, and that at the time when they're doing the remodel, they could end up, saving the money and putting the sprinklers in?
we did look at that. This is a big step for the communities around us. So I think we were trying to tread lightly, start a good starting Yeah. We're, not gonna say we're a little behind in this, but we are. So I think this is a good starting and a good step. So I would be happy with this.
Good.
Winnetka, they've actually passed it, it went through, and, so they're happy with that, and I think this is a good spot for us in Norfolk to be in right now.
Thank you.
Anybody else, questions for Steve or?
Just a quick question. I mean, obviously Northfield's a desirable place to build homes. We've seen new homes built in our community in recent years, but is there a ballpark percentage additional cost to this? I'm just curious. So if it's new construction, is it 1%, 5%?
Steve, you had in that documentation, it was just
And
over
even
$1.
at even just ballpark, I'm just curious.
$1 a
Yeah,
square foot.
some figures that in the sprinkler fact sheet that the Winnetka Fire Department had put together that says negative implications, cost, and I think this is based on a new 8,000 square foot home. Essentially, that estimated incremental cost would be about $13,000, according to this material.
You'll save that on insurance alone over a couple of years.
If I can, the numbers for the costs are, you'll hear all different costs. Those are the figures that Winnetka individuals came up with through the NFPA and things like that. So that's kind of an average cost to the United States. Could be a little bit higher in this area, could be a little bit lower. There are builders out there that'll come with huge numbers. So that's the best figure we could come up with that was nationally recognized.
Great, thanks, Tom.
That's with the cost. So in case somebody should come in and say that they're different prices, that's the number we went.
Well, and I think what Trustee Whitaker also pointed out, I know in Long Grove and some of the early communities did this, they had a huge public education program, because people get confused when there's a fire, only the sprinkler head that's affected by the heat of the fire will activate. It's not like you see in a movie where all the sprinkler heads go off. You know, the new code requires for when a smoke detector goes off one part of the house, all the smoke detectors go off to alert it, and it's not the same. So I think, you know, the public education, I know you can reach out to some of the communities that have done this and had to do this early. There's plenty of, you know, public service announcements, literature that can be put out there to allay the fears of people thinking that, you know, that their whole house is going to be full of water when, you know, when one sprinkler head will only activate. Especially nowadays with the EV vehicles in garages, that's another huge area where you want to make sure that, you know, you have the protection in there, whether it's a heat detector, coupled with, you know, early detection and also sprinkler system activation. So I applaud you guys for taking this on.
I think it's a good idea to update this, and I do think, thanks for all your work on this, Tom and Steve, and I think following Winnetka's lead too, since they do our inspections, makes a lot of sense. I think this, you know, well, maybe in a decade from now, we re-look at this and whether remodels are included as well, but I think this is a good first step. Anybody else have any questions or comments? All right, Steve, do you have the direction you need? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, discussion of the proposed fiscal year 25-26 goals and objectives. I think, Patrick, that's you, right?
Yes, thank you. So we have begun officially our budget process for the next fiscal year. And for those people that have not been involved in the budget process before, you see FY, which is fiscal year 25-26. The village runs not on a calendar year budget basis, but on a May 1st budget year basis, which had been very common for municipalities. Some over the years have changed to a calendar year because of property tax projections, but the last year you see in that is 26, is you'll sometimes see as a shortcut for the description of the budget. But a big part of that process for us is looking at what the board's overall goals and objectives are for the year as we start to put the budget together. Because this document for us serves as almost a living document throughout the course of the fiscal year that we use as a touch point to check and make sure that we're doing what the board had hoped that we would get accomplished, and also ensuring that we have the financial resources to move things forward. So this is really the first public step of the budgeting process as we discuss what the potential goals that the village board would like us to achieve are. Now, I know there's a lot of information on this slide and the text is small, but I also wanted to get it in one screen so you could see everything we're doing. This is kind of a long list, but it's also a list that I think covers, based on the time I've had here, a number of the goals and things that I've detected are important to the board. So what I'd like to do is give everybody a chance to read the list. I won't read the whole list for you. You're all capable of that. But just really put this out to the village board to say what large, big picture initiatives may not be here that you'd like us to take on, and/or what's on here you think that we shouldn't be spending time for. You'll see there are a couple minor deviations to the big picture things. One of those is the purchase of a new ambulance. That affects the whole community. It's a large ticket item, so I want to make sure you're aware that that's something that we would be proposing to put in the budget. And the other is the some of the smaller, like sidewalk gap infill. Those projects are part of an overall larger initiative to do sidewalk infills, but I also wanted to talk about which project we have in mind for that. I've heard the board talk a lot about the Wagner Road project, so that would be on the list, assuming that things move forward in that direction tonight.
Great, thank you, Patrick. I have a question, I'll start off. The strategic planning exercise, tell me how you think that would look.
Sure, that's something that would likely happen after the new village board is seated. And what I'd like to do is get the group together, and I don't know if it would be conducted by me or we'd bring an outside consultant in, but I would have funds budgeted to do a goal setting, but at a very high level for the village of what organizational objectives do you want us to move forward on? Because honestly, especially with me being new, I don't have a good sense of what you really want us working on as a community to move forward. Do you want us to put a lot of additional effort into economic development? You see it on this list of goals and objectives because I've heard from a number of you about how important that is. But as a community, how do we want to do that? How much do we want to engage in it? And it's really part of what I would call a 5 to 7 year planning process for the board of let's move us forward on some of the longer lead items and moving the community in that direction.
Great. Before we go on to others, anybody else have any questions or comments about the ones that Patrick's listed here?
Patrick, is your intention here to set aside funds or some bucket of money for each one of these things as we go into the budgeting process? Because a lot of these obviously are future projects. They're not something we're going to accomplish in the next 3 to 4 months. And this seems like a very expansive list to get everything in the budget. So how are you thinking of, prioritizing these if we agree that this is where we want to net out on projects?
Sure. Most of these items will require at least a little bit of budget planning, and that's why they're here. And some of them may go over multiple years. For example, the proactive economic development effort. That's an item where, as we put the budget together, we would be highlighting to the board, this is on your goals and objectives for the year, and we budgeted $7,000 for our first year effort at trying to do X, Y, and Z to start that process going. We would continue that annually if that continues to be a goal of the village board. And once we have the goals and objectives outlined, what I would do is try to get this into an actionable list that we will do the following things during the fiscal year, so it's measurable for you to see whether or not we've hit our targets.
So not suggesting that these are all going to be completed in the next fiscal year, but some incremental steps will be made on those projects. That's what you're...
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
I have a couple of questions and comments. It's a good list. There's a lot going on here. I'm sure we'd all have different priorities. The Centennial, it seems like that might happen in our parks, and they might do a really good job on that. So I'm not sure this board or future boards will have the wherewithal to really take that on and do what is needed. So I'm suggesting, maybe a discussion, maybe not now, but in the future, of some kind of a grant or something to the parks, since they already have a foundation and the ability to raise money. But if we gave them seed money for a centennial celebration, $25,000, $50,000, whatever the amount. But I think the idea is, I just realistically don't think we're going to do a great job at that. Not that we couldn't play a role with the parks. So I would suggest maybe simplifying that one piece, because that could be a big one otherwise. In terms of Wagner project, and again, it's described here as walkability, you know, I see that as like a hardcore safety play. And since the church and Pastor Dwayne is willing to do his part of the project, I just think that's a priority, that we find a way to do that little section from Willow to the driveway, since he's going to do from the driveway all the way back. So it's described as walkability, and I would just say it's safety, and I know that's important to this board. A couple other things I know we might talk about it at some point, but do we need some kind of water meter battery program? And will there be a cost to that? So I think that's something worth maybe adding to this list. And then I know we're going to get into it when we talk about the signage over Edens, but that's essentially an identity branding play. And this board did spend some time a few years ago and identified 4 places for, you know, welcome to the Village of Northfield, welcome to downtown Northfield signs. And, you know, we did the work, we basically had the plan, and we suspended it because of the looming Hap Road project. But since that project's clearly going to take some time, I would suggest we consider moving forward with those 4 welcome to Northfield signs, welcome to downtown Northfield, identify our downtown. So I would wonder about board members if they want to add that to this year's effort.
Anyone else?
Patrick, the strategic planning exercise, would that include like a 5 to 10 year projection that we would try to look at? Or are you talking about just a couple years, or what's your thought process for that?
In my opinion, it's a 5 to 7 year plan of where would you like to see us moving the village toward? Is it economic development? Is it more involvement in sustainability? Really big 30,000-foot level organizational objectives that we can then use for the next 5 to 7 years to build in for these goals and objectives. It's really a level above this as far as where you'd like us to move the village.
Okay, thank you. And then the next thing, Barnaby, I kind of agree with you that maybe we should look at partnering with the Park District for the Centennial. I think, you know, with the parks, with the things and the ideas, I think they've got some great resources and great people. And I think we could also continue forming a group to work with them, like we had talked about a couple years ago when the Centennial ideas came up. So I think as a board, we could look at getting some people. I know you've been very interested in it. I have as well. I know some other members have. So I think that's something that, you know, if we put some monies towards that, it would be a one-time, maybe 2-time, depending on how it works out, that we could put some money this year and next year's budget to have a really nice Centennial. I mean, it's 100 years, it's a big deal. And I think a lot of people, you know, as it gets closer will be, you know, and it'll be a great way to promote the businesses in Northfield and Northfield as a whole, you know, to do the whole Shop, Eat, Explore, Find It Northfield program, as well as, you know, celebrating our great history. So that would be something I think we should look at. The other things, I had some other ones. Do we want to add to those now, or do we want to wait till February? So one of the things that I looked at and I brought up a couple years ago is adding additional police staffing, whether that be full or part-time staffing. The other thing was solar-powered traffic radar trailer for the police. The problem right now is the trailer that they use has to be taken out to the site. It's there for a couple days, and then the batteries go dead. So I think a solar-powered trailer, you know, for the police department, which would, they could either have 2 or maybe trade in or get rid of. I know I've talked to them about trying to retrofit that one, and it's unable to be retrofitted. So a solar-powered trailer, I looked up the pricing. It's about $8,500. The other item I have is a sidewalk line item for Matt's program that, you know, I was involved with initially bringing up, trying to have sidewalk safety, but maybe we make that a line item. We put X amount of dollars a year budgeted towards the areas that the sidewalk committee has identified that's needed for sidewalk safety. I have spoken with Meade and I spoke with Patrick, and we kind of looked out at the corner of Walnut, Orchard, and Hap where that ill-advised roundabout was going to go. If you go out there right now, it's really dark, it's really unsafe. So I had Mead come out and gave us some pricing, which I talked to Patrick, he was there with me that day. And so there's a decorative pole that could be installed, which would be part of the whole improving the Hap Road corridor, and decorative for about $33,000. A plain aluminum one would be about $24,000. And again, with the Hap Road improvements, this is something that we may budget dollars for next year. I've got some renderings that I gave to Patrick to have him look at that. The other thing is a staffing review for the departments, basically looking at the village hall staff, police, public works, community development, internal review of staffing levels. When the previous village managers were here and when Tim Frenzer was here, there were some areas of staffing that were identified that were a little lax, that we may need to look at some staffing ideas to try to either part-time or full-time to get our staffing levels back where they need to be. The other thing was a crosswalk flashing beacon, which we discussed a couple years ago for Wagner and Bosworth. That was around, I talked to the different groups that were involved in this, and it was about $38,000. And I know there's been Cook County monies, or if we could potentially partner with Cook County and maybe we pay half and they pay half. I know that that's a huge safety issue at Bosworth and Wagner now. And the other area that we could potentially put another crosswalk flashing beacon would be right out here at Hap, Orchard, and Walnut, so that people that are trying to get across from the library to the eastern part of the downtown, we could have a flashing beacon there. Again, it's a county road, so maybe we could partner with them or look at some costs of that. Obviously, the new water main on Hap Road needs to be addressed for public safety. I know it's about 80 or 90 years old. Is that right, Chief? Okay. And then a couple other items were the radar speed monitoring devices mounted to the signposts, like the one that's across from the Chase Bank, one for the North Hap area and one for the South Hap area. And the cost on that is roughly $4,500 each for those type of signage. I know when people see those signs and the flashing light, that does cause them to slow down, and it monitors their speed and helps. The other issue that we talked with, and there's been pricing and stuff done, is a paved parking spaces between the west side of Clarkson Park, so that would be angle parking like the east side of Clarkson Park. That's another project that we can maybe partner with or look towards the Park District. I think it would enhance the safety of Churchill, and also a lot of times people use that area to park to go across the street to soccer games, which I know, Todd, you're near and dear with soccer, so I know a lot of people park there, and it would also create a better safety where they could have an unloading and loading area for the band shell, and also an area for handicap parking. So it's something that the Park District has already worked with Walton Hamilton, and has got some renderings and some ideas on pricing and some stuff. So I think those are things that we also could add to our discussions coming up in February, and look at those things to make some much-needed safety and improvements for the community.
Okay, so a lot there. I think that the last one with the parking at the Park District, we're waiting for the Park District to come to us with a plan. So it's their parking, it's their, I don't even know the right of way in that area.
It's our right of way.
It's our right of way.
It's our right of way.
But, obviously this is some enhancement that they would be addressing.
Absolutely. But again, it's a partnership issue with working with the Park District.
There's comments, I'm sure, from others about a lot of the things that you proposed, but as far as staffing goes, I'd say I defer to our village manager about staffing and analyzing staffing. I think that's not within the orbit of what I'm recommending to Patrick, and I think that Patrick, if he needs something, he comes to us. Anybody else have any comments about what Charlie was offering?
I just wanted to go back to the list that Patrick presented regarding the ambulance. When is our ambulance due for replacement? This May? And what's the delivery time on them? 3 years?
We're getting mixed delivery dates, I think they got way out there, now we're starting to see them come in for like SWAT cars and stuff.
Right.
And I think that when we're talking with manufacturers of fire trucks and ambulances, that we're getting different, 2 years to 4 years to
Right. Right, because I know we talked about replacing the squad too, correct?
Yes.
So, I mean, this is another one of those key pieces that definitely needs to be taken care of.
Definitely. I think it's, that is, Tom, to your point, that's something, and I think to Patrick's point, something we're going to have to be looking at in the next, in planning for the next year. Anybody else have any other goals and objectives?
I want to comment on one thing that Charlie said. I don't know that it's something for the budget, but in terms of the staffing thing, I actually agree. I think I'd like to see a study, it could be done by Patrick, just kind of analyzing what we have, what we need, if there's overlap. I think it is something that Tim talked about a little bit, and I think it's something that I know sometimes people feel we're staffed too lean, sometimes people think we're staffed too heavy on stuff, and I would like to see that. I don't know that it's appropriate for a goal and objective from a financial standpoint, if it's something that Patrick can do, but since Charlie brought it up, it's something that I think should be done. But again, I don't know that it has to be budgeted for, if it's something that Patrick can do, because I agree that these are things that Patrick.
He's analyzing it right now, I'm sure. It's,
And it could be internal, again, like we're talking about. This doesn't have to be a huge cost factor, it's something internally. And if he does need some dollars to have someone from the outside come in, or maybe something, him coming from the outside, seeing what might be needed would be a good idea. And I know it was identified by Tim Frenzer, who also came from the outside and looked at some of our issues, whether it's police staffing or staffing at the village hall level. So it's just something that we need to look at.
anybody else?
I had one other question.
Yeah.
Sorry. I don't know if this would be, well, it could be an objective, and maybe that would be to, re-examine and readdress our contractual services from the outside, because it's been a long time.
Good.
Well, I guess I have a question then. Okay, so we have this list. Now what happens with it? Is there some prioritization that needs to happen with it? I'm not saying that has to happen now or it should happen now, but what happens? A big list.
That's a great question. Patrick, how do you see this moving forward?
I don't know. No, it's really, for us, I put this together that I think it's doable. Staff right now is working on what we call end-of-year estimates, where they take a look at what the budget is, what we spent so far, and projecting out through April 30th, what will we have in hand and or spent by that date that gets booked in that fiscal year. Additionally, they're doing projections on revenues and starting to look at next year's budget as far as what uncontrollable costs are coming our way. Health insurance is going up about 6%. Police pension is going up $134,000, if I remember correctly. So where will we have room? And then for these items, if the board's comfortable with this list, I'll start working through and putting financial numbers to those that have a financial number to them and laying out a plan to say, the strategic planning session. If I feel it's something we can't do in-house, how much should I budget for it? And then do we need additional resources? Do I need to hire a private contractor? For economic development, should we have somebody else come in part-time and specializes in economic development? It's really getting in the next month for me into the nitty-gritty on how we're going to accomplish these and coming to you with a recommendation of, here's our list, here are the resources I think we need to accomplish this list. Can we fund it, and are you comfortable with it at that point?
Well, the other thing too, Patrick, I emailed this to you, and we talked about this a little bit, but Melissa, who's disappeared, has been really great through the years in securing grants. So there are grants out there, safety grants, especially for some of this stuff like the trailer and the lighting and the crosswalk beacons and stuff. So there are a lot of times there's a grant money available as well, for these. So these are just, again, issues that have been brought up to me by residents, by staff, by my own thought process and looking at things that need to be addressed. So I think, again, we can prioritize this at a later date. Some of them aren't real expensive, or we can also then set these up for this year, next year, the following year to start at least a program to start putting these in place. Thank you.
Just a comment here, there's some on this list that we've been thinking and working on for a while. For instance, the water main on West Frontage, I know that's been it's kind of looking at, over at Mike Nystrand's direction, it's been a troublesome area for a long time. And I think getting something like that, it seems that's money well spent there. I think we've been working for a long time, as long as I can remember, on Skokie Valley Trail and finalizing that. So that's a continuing, our walkability and sidewalk infill, that's something that's new, and I think that's an important project. Be interesting to get some engineering projected costs for that Wagner Road. Barnaby had some breaking news that the pastor at our Northfield Community Church, his board has approved that extension along the side of that of the entryway there. Is that correct?
I can't speak to whether the board did. He's talking as if it's a go.
Okay.
So I don't want to misrepresent it. I do know the pastor's been in touch with Steve Gutierrez, so I don't want to,
Yeah, he said that the powers that be were going to be considering that this month.
Okay.
Actually, I was going to check in with him.
Thank you,
next
Steve.
week on that.
I think public parking opportunities north of Orchard Lane, that should be a priority. I think we've gotten that. I think, Patrick, correct me if I'm wrong, we've gotten that pretty far along here, and we're just waiting for the final nod from IDOT on that. So I think that's something we should be pursuing hard. Well, what we don't really know is how much that our projected cost for that. I mean, you and I have talked some numbers, but I don't think the board has a broader understanding of that. Obviously, the ambulance. I would say beautification of Central Avenue corridors and Willow Road. My only hesitancy is what does that mean for one, and how will the potential for a Hap Road improvement, the future of our Hap Road, because it's going to need to be addressed in the next, I don't know, 6 years or so. So do we spend money and then take things out? I mean, do we have a broader vision of how that's going to look? So I'd be hesitant on that one. Obviously, planning for Northfield Centennial. I've always had the village doesn't have land to have a celebration. It's going to be a park district, so it'll be a partnership with the park district for sure. I always saw having some kind of, maybe develop a foundation where the village could help select maybe have a trustee on there. They're intergovernmental agencies, right? I mean, so you got to be careful about how money moves from one to the other, I think. But in any event, I think I'd love to engage the Park District and somehow engage their foundation. It's already a 501c3. Makes sense to kind of build off of that in any way we can help them within the legalities. I think would be great. So that's something I think. And now it's a time where we really got to start the planning now and start thinking about what our role is going to be.
Can I just add to that real quick?
Yeah.
Because I actually have talked to a couple of commissioners on the park board about just thoughts, and I think we can make it as difficult as we want, or we can make it as simple as we want. And I think there's
Say that you mean the celebration itself?
the celebration of our centennial. And I think there's definitely a want to. The partnership that we've developed with our park district is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And, the willingness for them to work with us and us work with them. And, I think that, tying the centennial into an event and helping,
Yeah.
subsidize and do a wow factor is something that could be pretty easy.
I think so too.
Yeah.
There's opportunities here too. I originally envisioned, we started talking about this, that, educating our kids about our first 100 years. So the library could be a great partner in this too. They may be interested in kind of sharing some resources or input, but make it an entire community. The school board in the school district, engaging the school district and having all of our school kids understand kind of what Northfield looked like 100 years ago and our progress today. So there's a lot of opportunities there.
The other thing is look at what Wilmette Centennial did for the
right.
community. I mean, it created an annual event now that everybody goes to.
Right.
So if we could do something like that, that would be fantastic.
And Todd, I think, was in Kenilworth when they did their 100-year, right? Yeah.
And to your point, it does take, yeah, exactly. It does take a fair bit of planning, and it takes a lot of volunteers. And we can use our forum here to help get the word out. I think that's what's important, and people have to buy into it. It can't just be leaders, it's got to be everyone in the community is lending a hand in it, and make it very transparent and want people to come, encourage them. So the enthusiasm factor will be off the charts. We did it in Kenilworth. It was a 2-day event in total with fireworks at the end, which was the only time they've ever done fireworks at the Kenilworth Beach, which was kind of fun and scary, lighting them off. But yeah, it could be very, very, very cool. And when I saw planning Northfield Centennial, I think less about us planning, but is there a project that could be for the Centennial specifically, that is a reminder for the 100th anniversary? I don't have any ideas right now. It's just something I'm tossing out there to think about.
And just, we have done, Trustee Mendrick and I worked, on behalf of the board on a Centennial program which exists. So this board has already spent money on a plan, and there were a lot of good ideas in there. So I think a start would be maybe to share that with the parks and
This is Chandler, thanks, is that right?
yeah, and they did a really good job, and it's a living, breathing document. But yeah, and I agree with Todd about a project, and I think when Trustee Whitaker said wow factor, I think he meant wow bun factor. Yes. He left the bun off, but yes.
Can I just wanted to wrap things up here. I think you're ready to move on. I would like to see us keep these, all of these items kind of as a separate spreadsheet with some dollar amounts allocated to it, because I don't want us to lose track of all the other things that are going into our budget for the coming year. And, some of the things that were mentioned, I presume that Patrick, your staff would come to you and tell you if they were a high priority or where they were on their priority list of things that they're budgeting for in 2025, 26. So that if we come back in February, the list looks exactly the same with some, some at least ballpark prices with it too. Not just, we want to do all of these things. I think to help you move things forward, we have to have some dollar amounts related to them, because we all agree we'd love to do them all, but the reality is we may, based on pricing, need to do more prioritizing even than what Greg just suggested.
By the February meeting, you'll see this list with a bracket after each item and the dollars we estimate it being, so you can align those visually.
And I also, to Ann Peterson's point earlier, I think there is a case to be made for some sort of a sustainability planning within the village. Simple as water coolers, more complex is what she talked to us about tonight. But to have that as an item where we actually begin to really think about what sustainability means to this village and what some of the next steps might be for even just for Village Hall to become more compliant with some of the suggestions.
Great. Thank you, Tracy. Anybody else? I think we want to keep moving. All right, thank you. I know you got some homework to do. Thank you, Patrick. Next on the agenda, continued discussion concerning potential enhancements for the Winnetka Road Bridge.
So, President Lungamus, we've got the option. It's almost the time for the celebration for Chief Hutensky.
Want to push this or what?
We can either pause this meeting and go to that, or you can adjourn, and I'll just cover that under the regular board agenda. It's whatever your preference is.
Anybody have any objection if we just adjourn and then talk about this at the board? Terrific. So can I have a motion and a second to adjourn?
Motion to temporarily adjourn.
No, not temporarily.
Or not temporary.
To adjourn.
Second.
And continue this conversation. Thank you, Tracy. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So So this, the committee of the whole is adjourned, and we're going to celebrate some appointments and of our new chief and some appointments in the fire department at the regular board meeting. But there's a little gathering outside for Chief Utensky, and that's where we're going to join right now.